In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the 2019 film 1917. So let's dive right into 1917.
Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the Dub Cast.
1917 was released on December 4th, 2019. The genre is a British war film. The runtime is just under 2 hours, an hour and 59 minutes. The budget was $90 to $100 million. The director is Sam Mendes, who his past movies, he's in a couple Bond movies. The only Bond movie I've seen of his is Skyfall, which I enjoyed but watched a long time ago, so I'm not sure how well that really holds up today. I couldn't really tell you a lot about Skyfall. Other than the Adele song was really good, but that doesn't have much to do with Sam Mendes. Anyways, this movie stars George McKay, Dean Charles Chapman, Mark Strong, Andrew Scott, Richard Madden, Colin Firth, and Benedict Cumberbatch. So if you're new to the channel, what I like to do is give my overall review, and then I'll give a score, compare that score to different movies I've reviewed so far, and then at the end give my overall thoughts and reactions to things as they occurred throughout the movie. So let's dive right in with my overall review. So I thought this movie was a crazy ride, especially at the end of the movie. The end of the movie I thought was a pretty strong part of it. Maybe obviously the best part. You have one of the best scenes of the movie. Well, definitely the best scene of the movie at the end. The scenes of him running at the end just prop up the movie a lot, especially because they're so awesome and the setup to them was fantastic as well. I remember at the time, late 2019, early 2020, seeing a lot of commercials of him running, and I remember actually kind of being annoyed at the promotion of this movie just from watching TV and always seeing this movie, but having actually watched it, I was always curious about what this movie was about, and I think it was well worth the watch. So the whole movie takes the span over the course of about a day, which is crazy to think about once you think about everything that transpired in the movie. I thought the journey of the main character was really interesting at points, and I like how it is very realistic with dead bodies, limbs, etc., with the set pieces mostly just being like shit smuttered around everywhere. I'm praising that because it's very realistic. This kind of new genre of movies that I've been watching, well, mostly just this and Hacksaw Ridge with the kind of realistic war movies and taking place in the past, but being set in the current day with new technology and new like backgrounds and set pieces and stuff. I think are really like adds a layer of context to the movie because you can really like immerse yourself. It's more realistic. Obviously, there's still some good war movies from back in the day, but having watched those movies and then this movie, you can see the difference in new CGI, new graphics, and just updated all that, like the set pieces. I really enjoy that part of it. So this not being truly inspired by a true story, this was mostly inspired from tales of a true story. I will pick at the plot a little bit. I thought there were points that the main character should have easily been dead. That's not a huge nitpick because this movie takes itself pretty seriously, so I'm just going to put that out there. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, especially in the last 3/4 or the last, like, quarter of the movie, there was a couple scenes where he should have been toast. But, that's the luck of some people, and he'll get that medal maybe and live to tell the tale, but that just seemed a little bit egregious with some of the stuff. Anyways, the score delivered for sure, I thought. I also noticed some of the usage of it, which I found interesting. That added to the movie, the music stopping when Blake died, etc. I really did like the score of this film as well. Feels like we didn't know a lot about our main character. They kind of hinted at it, like some of his background, having a medal and kind of not wanting to go home to his family and whatever. But I wish we kind of could learn a little more about him. He's still very, you're very sympathetic towards him. You still root for him a lot. But I thought we could have learned a little bit more about him. But this isn't really a story that needs a lot of details about him, so I'm not going to nitpick that a lot either. So you feel like you're right along with him during the trip. I also appreciate the aspect of no one in the military directly giving a shit about him and Blake, as they kind of just like acknowledge him and try and help where they can, but no one's like going out of their way to help save them, which I found grounding and realistic, and I like that aspect of the movie as well. These other military officers have their own thing that they need to work on. There's like, have fun, go like do your mission, but we're not going to try and help you or whatever. So Some of the scenes towards the middle I thought were left a little bit to be desired. I was a little bored. Maybe I'm too much of a screenager at this point, but that was something that happened to me during the movie. I think the one take shots were amazing as well. Awesome camera work in the film. The beginning of the scene, even they're walking for about 20 to 25 minutes. I thought that was a really cool scene as well. Looking back on it, major props to the camera crew and the director of this movie. Like those shots were just amazing. Overall, I have a tough time landing this movie with a score. I would definitely recommend it to people who like war movies and World War One junkies. This is a great film for those people. It's definitely captivating at points, especially the ending's really cool. Obviously, that scene of the running is one of the major, like, what you'll know this movie by. I also think that it's a good thriller that keeps you enthralled in the story. I do think it's been slightly overrated just from what I've seen online, at least in what I came to expect from it as well. I'm letting it at 8.2. Pretty solid score for the movie, but I'm not really inclined to rate it any higher. I just kind of had the same feelings about it as another war movie, which I'll talk about in a second. But I like the set building, like the running scenes were awesome. The ending was awesome. The ending was a good payoff, but there was a little bit of a slog in the middle of the movie, from my point of view, and I wasn't fully captivated, but it was like good enough to keep me entertained throughout. But some of the other stuff that happened in the movie, like the score, background scenes, those amazing scenes at the end, prop it up to an 8.2. So, what would you guys rate this movie? Let me know down below. Let's now compare this movie amongst the other movies we've reviewed so far on the Dubcast. So at an 8.2, this ties with Hacksaw Ridge, which I really like that comparison between this and Hacksaw Ridge. I think there's a lot of similarities in those two movies, so I'm leaving them with the same score. And this also ties with Brokeback Mountain, which was an 8.2. So when it comes down to this at 8.2 versus Hacksaw Ridge and Brokeback Mountain, I'm putting this to the number one spot. I think they did a lot of creative stuff with the one take shots and the camera work, and this will have scenes that stick out to me more than anything from Brokeback Mountain and Hacksaw Ridge. Hacksaw Ridge is third of that list. Brokeback Mountain, emotional movie. That was a really good movie as well, but that's just where you're nitpicking. I'm giving 8.2s to all three of these, so it's really like an 8.2 whatever, 8.27, 8.3 whatever. So I'm putting 1917 at number one above both those movies. So comparing this to other war movies, we have Brothers, which beat out this movie by 0.2 points. That was an 8.4. This obviously just beats out Hacksaw Ridge barely, also another 8.2. I mentioned that before. 300 is somewhat of a war movie. That's an 8.1. Last Samurai, war movie as well, different kind, 8.0. And Good Morning Vietnam, which is a 6.7. So pretty high up in the war rankings on my list so far. I'm sure there'll be other movies that are about war that we'll discuss later on, but this makes the 8 category the most popular category on the list. Am I going too soft with these reviews? I'm giving a lot of 8s. You could say that, but what I like to think is people are recommending these movies to me. So people recommending good movies, like they're not going to recommend bad movies, and some of them don't stick with me. That's why there's some scores below, but I'm okay with the 8s being on there. I also just tend to rate things pretty highly, so I'm all good with that. But am I being too soft? Let me know down in the comments below. So now let's dive into my thoughts and reactions throughout the movie. So first, we meet our main characters, which are Blake and Schofield. We learn a little about what they're up to right now. So they are hungry. They expected to leave earlier than they are. One of them has a leave planned. Blake has a brother in the 2nd Division or whatever. Have 2 battalions, 1,600 men so they go into a meeting. The sergeant gets Blake. He's like, pick one person, and there's only Schofield lying right next to him. So he's like, go get Schofield, obviously, or he just picks Schofield, obviously. So there's 2 battalions, 1,600 men could be lost if they don't make it in time to warn them about an upcoming attack. Now, this is a pretty good motive to want to go and stop this attack, help out 1,600 men, World War I. It could be very important, swing the battle, whatever. They're walking into a trap. Kind of an interesting mission, only sending 2 people, but it makes sense the way they do it, because if you send more, it brings attraction. Obviously, throughout the movie, we see that them only being 2 people kind of benefits them in some areas, and especially one person when one passes away. But yeah, so that's our premise of the movie. Honestly, a pretty captivating premise. He needs to go and save all these people from walking to an attack. I enjoyed that plot aspect of it, like the main plot of the story. So we get Blake. He's basically running out of there. yeah, Blake is like, Schofield is like, do you want to stop and think about this for a second? Are you sure you want to do this? And Blake's like, no, we're doing this for my brother. So that was a great choice by the people, the sergeants picking him because his brother's in those battalions. So picking him with the emotional connection, I thought that was a really good choice because he's just super motivated to go and get it, to go get them and warn them about the attack. He doesn't even think twice about it. Schofield's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, but Blake was never going to stop and even think about it. So that was a good choice by the higher ups. So they get to the Yorks. This is where they need to leave their access point to cross into no man's land and make their way. It's kind of a weird map. Like it's no one should be following. I mean, the World War One junkies can follow the map of everything they're talking about, but I didn't really particularly care about the map. Basically, there's this town they have to get to, and then it's like right outside that town is where they need to go. So they have an exit point on their front line where they need to go, which is the Yorks. The Yorks are skeptical of their chances to cross, basically saying like, "God bless you," and they say like, basically, we'll pick up your bodies and bring them back when you die. So they have no, off the bat, they really have little to no confidence from other outside support other than the people who give them the mission. So they check. Yeah, they think that they're basically dead walking out there. So the Yorks not instilling a lot of confidence in them. So as they're making their way through the barbed wire and stuff, Schofield already fucked his hand up. That looked like it hurt. Like don't want to think about my hand on barbed wire. I mean that was a gruesome injury of like 10 minutes into the journey. Um, Dead bodies everywhere with rats eating them. He has to like climb through. He trips in the sand and then puts his hand through a dead body. Now that's gross, obviously, but I like that it's like kind of immersive and you can like understand what these guys had to go through in order to get to where they needed to be. So I didn't hate that scene. It was just uncomfortable to watch because he's sticking a hand through a dead body that's been there for days and is just rotting. But so they make it eventually to the enemy front line. Some funny back and forth between Blake and Schofield during all this. Schofield's mentioning his hand is hurt, and Blake says, "Patch it up, you'll be wanking in no time." That made me laugh. One of the only moments of funniness in this movie before it gets very serious. So yeah, they are in the German bunker, and a rat hits the tripwire that they just found. So they're like, "Hey, there's a tripwire right there. Don't touch that." So they see it. A rat comes down from the ceiling, hits the tripwire, blowing shit up and just crumbling the German structure they're in. Schofield's buried under the rubble but lives. He can't see for a couple minutes. He jumps across the mine shaft blind, and Schofield's bitching already. I mean, I said, "Come on, bro," in my notes, but I mean, that's pretty fair to be bitching. You might literally be blind. So yeah, let's just digest this scene. Holy fuck. So first of all, a rat. These rats are massive. I think they say their rats are bigger than our rats. Maybe I'm mixing up movies, but I think that was the thing. So a rat drops, hits the tripwire. So that's like just chance happening. Like I got that's a thing that happened. So the whole building just crumbles, and Blake's okay, but Schofield's buried under fucking like pillars of shit. So him getting up out of that and then being blind, and they have to jump across a little mine shaft, which is like a leap of faith at that point. So already this journey's like, holy shit, bro, and we're not even like half an hour into this movie. Poor Schofield, man. I mean, he's got a long way to go in this journey. He gets beaten to a pulp throughout this whole thing, but he makes it out of this part at least. Both of them make it out of this at least. So they're talking about medals, which is one of the only personal moments we really get with Schofield. So Schofield thinks Blake will get a medal for this. Schofield actually had medals before in his previous deployments, but he swapped one of his medals for a bottle of wine with a French captain, and he didn't want to come home. And I don't. This is where I was confused, and I said I wish we learned a little bit more about him and his life dynamics back home, or like who he was at all, because at the end of the movie he pulls out a picture of his family, and you can clearly tell he like at the end of the movie he wants to meet Blake's brother and tell him about everything that happened. He cares a lot for Blake, like buries him, takes his belongings and stuff. I mean, spoilering on into later parts of the movie, we're not there yet, but I want like Schofield, I feel like could be a very complicated character if they kind of took the time to make us invest in him. And I'm not saying that's, I've said in my overall review, like that's not something I was really looking for in this movie. Like you don't need that part in this movie, but I just thought that was an interesting choice. Not really tell us a lot about him. Um, I think this movie's more about the mission than the characters, which is what I'm saying over and over again. But yeah, I don't think that could have maybe benefited the movie, and this could have been a little bit longer, like maybe a flashback scene of him, whatever. But this is one of the only really personal moments we get with him, explaining that he didn't want a medal, so he doesn't kind of believe in that. Can't tell. He's probably anti-war, but he kind of reminds me of Tobey Maguire's character from Brothers, where he doesn't want to. He never wants to, or he wants to come home theoretically, but then he's like, the first chance you get to go back out there, you want to go back out there. Um, so yeah, I thought the Schofield could be a more interesting character than he was, but I get it with the kind of themes they wanted to go into with this movie. Why we didn't really get a lot of background on him and just the plot points and overall stuff. But anyways, they're moving along on their journey. So they have there's a dogfight they see taking place. It's a 2-on-1, two U.S. planes versus one German plane. The two U.S. planes win. The plane is thrust right into the structure where they are. They take the German out of the plane. So this German plane comes crashing into the structure. They take him out of the plane. He's burning. He's on fire. Which maybe Schofield and Blake are too soft. I don't know what like the war terms of. I don't know the in-depth like code of World War I. Like, would you help that guy? Would you kill him? I'm assuming you'd want to kill him. Obviously, I'm saying that now, watching what transpires after this scene, but I think there was a bad decision to let him. I mean, it's kind of that speaks more to Blake's character about like wanting to help and being nice and whatever. So it's Blake pulls him out of the fire, is tending to his wounds. Schofield goes and grabs water for him to dump on him to burn him out, or I forget if it was to give him water to drink or to extinguish fires on him. But while Schofield is gunning water, the German stabs Blake. Blake slowly bleeds out and then dies with the music. I thought that was a good aspect of the score, as I mentioned before, with the score dying out as Blake dies out. Just something I noticed. I'm not really like a super big film critic, but I did like that scene. That's something I noticed. So yeah, R.I.P. to Blake, man. Blake was a good character. I enjoyed his presence on the screen. I think him and Schofield had a really good dynamic, a good back and forth. Like they were funny together. Schofield being more serious, Blake being a little more like off the cuff, like chill, joking around vibes. And yeah, his brother now, like this journey for his brother, he passed away on it. So it's a really sad dynamic. Um, yeah, I wonder thematically what the idea was. Well, I get it because now Schofield's motivation is Blake died, so he needs to go and see his brother. So I understand that part of it. So R.I.P. to Blake. He was on a mission and just couldn't make it. So as the plane is crashing, there's smoke rising above it. More men come from the American Alliance side after seeing the smoke from the plane to help lay down Blake, which was a nice gesture. There's always that military code of help bearing your brothers and being there for your brothers in the military force. That was a cool scene to see those boys come and help lay down Blake. They're also going to help give Schofield a ride to where he needs to be, that town. Just due to their mission, they can't really help him on theirs, of course, which is fine, but they're going to do their best they can to give him a ride, drop him off there. So Schofield's in the back of one of the trucks. This was a kind of interesting scene where you in the back of the truck is Schofield and then a bunch of people around him who are like all these different nationalities, making a bunch of jokes with each other. And it was kind of sad to see Schofield in this scene because his like best friend in the army, brother that he was on the mission with, just died, and they're kind of just joking around. So it's an interesting dynamic playing out. But once they get stuck in the mud, Schofield directs them to kind of get out and shove the truck so the tires get out of the mud because he really needed to get to where he needed to be to help Blake and also stop the attack. So I thought that was a cool scene of them all coming together and pushing out the truck of the mud. So good job on them. So he's also on this journey. He mentions his mission. He's going to meet with Mackenzie, I think, who is Benedict Cumberbatch. So he's warned by the superior of the other crew. I forget if he was a sergeant or a general or whatever, the guy who helped him initially after finding him after the plane crash, that he needs witnesses in an encounter with Mackenzie. He says some men just want the fight. So this adds another layer of complexity to the storyline because even if Blake is able to get to Mackenzie, Mackenzie might just say, fuck you, like, no one's here to listen to you. I'm going to pursue with this attack anyway, which I think would have happened. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this scene in relation to what actually happens, I think this actually does transpire at the end because we'll get to there. But so that's something else that's going on in the back of your head. Like, even if he gets there, it might just be like, fuck you, we're going anyway. So yeah, now Schofield is by himself on his own journey to make it. He only has to make it a couple. I think he's around the town, but they get stopped again. The bridge is down. He's not gonna have enough time, so he needs to go back on his own. So he's crossing the bridge that's down. He gets shot at. He just goes straight for the person shooting. It's kind of a cool scene where the sniper is up in the tower. He's like below this bridge. He's shooting down on him. Makes his way up, gets the sniper. He awakes to the village. Actually, before that, so he shoots the guy and he gets shot. The guy is dead, but he wakes up to the village being lit up with flares and being shot at by Germans. So he sees a massive fire, and then is chased down by a German soldier who can't hit shit for his life. So this is the scene I'm talking about. Schofield's just running, and then the German's right behind him, can't hit a fucking shot for his life. And I'm not saying, like, that's a bad thing. Obviously, Schofield's our guy. I'm with Schofield at this point, but that was where I was like, okay, he probably should be dead at this point. But nonetheless, another also good scene with the set building and stuff with the fires everywhere, the flares everywhere. I thought this was really detailed and another amazing scene by this movie. So yeah, Schofield narrowly survives. While he's on the run, he ducks into a house. At this point, they're in France. So he's in this house, kind of walking around. Doesn't seem like there's anybody there. But there's a French woman and a baby, which was really interesting. So the French, from my own experience, I know that they don't really like to learn English. I was told when I was in Europe that they are not the least likely people to learn English because they really like their own language and respect their own language. But they're able to communicate somewhat, like it's kind of like a broken back and forth. So the baby, it seems like the girl wants him to stay, and I thought that they were gonna be like romantically involved somehow, which was fine that they weren't. I was actually glad that they weren't because, like, God forbid we need a fucking romance in every movie. Anyways, he had saved milk from the farm earlier, which, like, is a dumb plot point that he just saves milk and now the baby needs milk, which the woman is, I'm not gonna say it, but he saves milk from earlier, which was like, okay, why is he saving milk in his jar when there's water? But, you know, some people have their preferences. So now that milk that he saved earlier comes in handy. Now there's a woman with a baby who needs milk, which I thought was like a good continuation for nothing. Like, I thought that was really a stupid plot point, but go ahead. So as soon as daylight hits, he's got to leave early in the morning to get to his spot on time. The woman wants him to stay, but he's like, I got to go save 2,000 people and 2 battalions, lady. Like, see you later. So he encounters a young soldier who he tries to shush, but he's yelling. This young German soldier was also with an older guy who's just hammered around a fire. So he suffocates the younger guy, and the German soldier's like, what are you doing over there? Blah, 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 blah. And then he shoots him. He has to dip after this because the people are onto him that he just killed 2 German soldiers. He jumps. So he's running again. This was kind of another scene where he probably should have died. He's in this German-occupied town, runs through, and then he's being chased, and he has to jump about 50 feet into the ocean. And, yeah, he just floats until he finds a place to get off. So my thing with this was those letters he has from Blake and also his orders. Now, this is 1917. I couldn't remember the name, or I couldn't remember what year it was. It's the fucking name of the movie. Anyways, this is 1917, so you're telling me they have waterproof vests that you can float down a river, and then the orders from the captain and the people will just be okay. Like, those letters are shit right now. Blake's belongings, I don't know if there was a letter, or I think there was a picture there too. Also, his picture of his family. That's got to be ruined, respectfully. But maybe I'm wrong, you know, maybe I can do some research into waterproof technology in 1917, but that just felt like all that stuff should have been in shambles from him floating down the river. But what do I know? So he conveniently gets out of the water and stumbles upon a group of soldiers who are singing. Um, he takes it all in. He's like, "Do you guys know where the Devons are?" And he's like, "We are the Devons." So he's now in that group of 24, or I think it's 2,400, two battalions. He's in that group of Devons. That's the people he's been looking for. So now he needs to make his way to Mackenzie to get him the order to stop this attack. So they are all preparing for the attack. Those people sitting there was in preparation because they're about to go attack. This is the attack he needs to stop because if they're walking into a trap. So he runs along the line asking for Mackenzie. He finds a crying captain along his way. This was obviously the peak of the movie, the best part of the movie. Before he even starts running, he's like asking around frantically, and then as soon as like the bombs start hitting, he just runs, makes a full sprint, trying to find people and ask about the thing. He's like right on the front line, right above the barrack. What's it called? Trench. He's right above the trench, just running. Obviously, just cinema. Like that was probably one of the better scenes of 2019. You've probably seen that scene a million places everywhere. I have too, and I need to rewatch that scene again. Like that was hype. That was a really good scene. My friend told me that's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite scenes in a movie. Don't know if I go that far, but it was definitely an amazing scene. So he's asking for Mackenzie, finds a crying captain, whatever. Different captains along the way. Like you got to keep going, you got to keep going. So he finally gets to Mackenzie, who's Benedict Cumberbatch, which I don't know why. Like on Netflix, if this movie was on Netflix when I watched it, January 2025. I don't know why on Netflix it's like this picture of Benedict Cumberbatch, like that he's barely in this movie. But I don't know, maybe it's just a marketing piece because I don't know these other actors really that well. The only one that stuck out to me is Colin Firth, who I bet is barely in this movie as well. I think he might have been one of the Yorks. So yeah, maybe that's just like you need to put your name in there. But Benedict Cumberbatch is in this movie for like 10 minutes. Anyways, he makes his way to Mackenzie. He finally finds him who's Benedict Cumberbatch. So he orders a stand down. Schofield really made it in time. Well, mostly. I think obviously there are people that will pass away, the people on the front lines that he ran through to get there. You know, he has to call him back, but a couple of people died, and couple of those people died right in front of him. So he did it, and you know my flashpoint from earlier about him maybe not being able to get the point across in front of witnesses. I think the person second in charge there was like, "Hey, you actually got to do this, Mackenzie. Like, don't be an idiot." So, good job by Schofield keeping that in mind when he told this to Mackenzie. So he made it in time. They're gonna call back the attack, and then after that, it's like, what now? You know, I think that's kind of what was going on in Schofield's mind. It was kind of just an awkward part where it's like, you did your mission. Now what? You know, he just is kind of walking around sauntering. I understand that completely because it's like you got that thrill done. Now, what is there? Not thrill, but like you did your mission. That's what you're hyping. Like you almost lost your life multiple times for this one mission. Now it's good. Like now what? Because he has a very complicated thought on being in the army as that's kind of been played out. But I mean, yeah, Schofield did it. So the ending parts of this movie, he's running around trying to find Lieutenant Blake. Obviously, being the other Blake's brother, now needs to tell him about him passing away, give him his belongings. So he finds him, tells him about his death. His brother is actually Sebastian Stan, I think. Gives him his belongings. He says he'll write. He wants his brother to write to his mother and tell her that he wasn't alone when he died. It's kind of a nice message there. I'm sure Schofield will find more ways to pay respect to Blake in the future. So they begin the movie sleeping, resting their head on a tree. Now Schofield is alone, resting his head on a tree, and that's the way this movie ends. His mission is complete. He has done it. So, yeah, mission complete. That's 1917. What did you guys think of this movie? I gave it an 8.2. Would you go higher or lower? A solid movie. I'm glad I watched it. It's on Netflix, so make sure to watch on Netflix. They're kind of always switching around what movies are on there and stuff. So that'll do it for this movie review. The past couple movie reviews that we've done, we did American Gangster, Isle of Dogs. What's the other one? The Guilty. So yeah, movie reviews will keep coming. Next movie review will be Django Unchained. And then besides that, we have the weekly NFL streams. This video might be coming out during UFC 311 lead up or like the day of. So if you are interested in UFC, I'm hoping to pull a guest for that, but always, in limbo with the Dubcast. No, I'm just kidding, but hoping to pull a guest for that. If not, I'll be by myself making my picks for UFC 311. Besides that, TV time will commence as soon as the football is over. I might just start watching that now, but expect more movie reviews, TV show reviews and reactions. Tier list, I'm doing pretty well as well. So that'll wrap up 1917. So as always, be easy.